shut up and answer any questions you may have. Yes, sir.
Don't those managers have a fiduciary responsibility to the retirees? That's a legal requirement. Shouldn't somebody be looking into this?
I absolutely agree with you. I would like for the Attorney General to take a look at this. I'm concerned that, you know, they did that review, Clark. Now, I'm not casting stones. He was handling the state employees. I'm a state employee. He was handling our funds. 3 days a week. What was it, 6 figures he was making? High 6 figures as a salary, 3 days a week. And they called him day trading. Now, I'm not a market investor guy, but I think he was getting stock information and doing it on his account on our time, making money off of it by getting information from New York. He left at the end of December. So did the chairman. But go ahead.
Then also another thought.
Turn it on.
Another thought, the State Ethics Commission for some of these people. I mean, this is clearly unethical. They're patting their own ass. I think that's a violation of the state ethics law. Couldn't that also be an element?
That's why I'd like the Attorney General to take a closer look at this. Now, I know that she was involved in an accident and she's had her own set of problems, but I do think this is right for somebody to take a closer look at it. Not just the Ethics Committee, but I think there may be some borderline ethical or criminal potential violations. I mean, you know, the SEC, like Richard was saying, on these hedge funds and derivatives and some of this other nonsense, I'm thinking, we ought to stop that. It ought to be prohibited, period. And if we have to do it legislatively, you would think that this is a board, you would use your common sense and you would stop that practice, especially if you were losing money continuously, right? Well, if they're not doing it, how do you put matters on them? And they say, well, everybody's got to make legislation. You do too much of that up there. You see what happens when you don't do enough of it. This is going wild.
And the worst part about it is these are people who are approaching their elder years, dependent on their money, and these people are robbing them blind.
Amen. Now, how do we fill the void? Because, like Richard was saying earlier, what are you going to raise taxes to pay for mistakes that were made by people that may or may not have been profiting off of what's been going on? Question mark. Who was making money off of this? We certainly weren't. We were losing money. Yes, sir.
If you could hold on until you get the mic. Who wants to talk?
Right here.
Sure.
I had a couple of ideas since you were talking.
Yes, sir.
When you were talking about sending the op-ed piece out, should you also send it directly to the union leaders?
I'll send it to anybody. It's not going to bother me and the business community because everybody has a vested interest in this. Why? We're on the hook, whether we know it or not, for those pensions of the retirees and those that are still in the system. And if the bottom is falling out, who's responsible and who's going to make that up?
I'm just going to say that between the state employees and the teachers are an entirely educated group of people. If they are actually shown what's going on, can't they then get in and call for some lawsuits against the managers of these people? Because they're obviously, I'm going to say, can we sue for malfeasance in office? A lot of these people, because clearly they're in it for themselves. They're not in it for a salary and then to serve the people. Right. They're simply sucking money out all over. And as you pointed out, approximately half or 2/3 of the money has already disappeared.
Right.
Of what should be there.
They have a fiduciary responsibility when they get on these boards. And as we get sworn in January, we have a fiduciary responsibility to the citizens and taxpayers of this Commonwealth. And that should not be taken lightly. So if you get appointed to one of these boards like that, shouldn't there be, first of all, an educational process as to, you know, what are these things that we're investing in? And do we need to invest in all these different, like if we had everyone here, I was going to invest in, you're going to charge me a management fee. Richard had said, why aren't they looking at, if you make me money, you get a percentage, no management fee. You get a percentage of the profits that you make off my money. We could do that, by the way. And a lot of investors do just that. It's almost like a double wrap. You're not only getting the management fee, you know, you're getting the 20%, you know, they're grabbing top and bottom. So, I mean, it's a double whammy that we're suffering as taxpayers, and those boards should be held accountable. I absolutely agree with you.
I would like to say when I was in college, I had the privilege to have Dr. Philip Elkin at Philadelphia College of Textiles and Science point out that all these so-called professional managers who manage all these mutual funds take enough fees out of them that it really doesn't matter what they're doing. You can actually throw darts at the page,
Right.
and at the stock market page, and actually do better than they do without even knowing anything about the investments, because there are no fees coming off the top. Whatever you get, you get. But it tends to be better than the best of the professional managers.
I couldn't agree with you more. And the shotgun approach, as you saw Richard's portray of all of those different investment firms, I looked at them, I thought, why? Why that many? What's going on there? Who's making money and why? I mean, common sense would say, this doesn't look right. This doesn't smell right. You know, it may be borderline criminal. It may be. Part of it could be stupidity. I mean, I'm not saying we have the most brilliant people that are serving on there, but somebody is throwing curveballs and they're not hitting them. Yes, ma'am.
I was working in New Jersey for quite a few years in the school system over there, and Governor Whitman, it was a nice tidy little sum in the pension fund that just kind of was sitting there, and they took a lot of it and used it for other things, and of course once it leaves, it's never replaced by the state. But the teachers were required to pay a higher percentage from their salary to get more money back in there. So I'm just wondering if some of the governors might have said, gee, we need some money. The pension fund's just sitting there, not doing much, so we'll borrow. And you never see it put back in again.
But one of the things that you just said, I said, and I've told members and other people in the groups, teachers as well as the state unions, that if, and this is terrible to say, but I think it may have to happen, if we have to put more money in individually as employees, we just may have to do it. If that means to save the pensions, to bump it up another percentage or two. But it's like a slap in your face. We didn't cause the problem. The governors and these two boards did. But somehow, some way, we got to get ourselves out of that hole. And I don't want to see the taxpayers get strapped with this, but they're saying, oh, the ceiling's falling in, you know, we got to do something. Yeah, here we go again. That's trying to figure our way out. Oh, and by the way, let me just share this with you. When I was in Harrisburg today, I was told that, and this really shocked me, I thought it was $1 billion that Governor Corbett borrowed. It's $1.75 billion that was borrowed that we got to pay back. So this hole is getting a lot deeper than I think most people realize. Yes, sir.
I had one question too. Is
Yes,
she
sir.
was just saying that they took money out of this pension stuff, so that's all legal and everything's okay?
Well, you know what they do when they balance the budget? When they get a budget every year, they present it to the appropriations committees in the House and Senate. They hold hearings, they bring in all the different secretaries, they grill the different groups, you know. And then it's almost like pro forma. Boom, boom. Okay, most of it gets approved. Do they follow the money? What I think was happening during the good times, the good years, they were using it in different areas. Economic development as an example. I mean, they were putting it when they thought it was going to do them the best good. I mean, if you were the governor and you were, you know, in your second or third year and you're thinking, I want to run for re-election, I better start throwing some economic development money there. Or maybe I better throw some more money into education. And, you know, they were doing those things. Don't misunderstand me. I think that's where some of the money went. I don't know if that's where all of the money went. Yes, sir.
Let me follow up to that. Some of the investing that the pensions do is done inside of the state of Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
So this could go to counties or school districts and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they're supposed to keep an accurate record of that, which is not done. Okay? I want to go back real quick to one of the other statements. Can anything be done? Yes. I know a lot of you are familiar with the interest swaps. Okay? Jack Wagner said in his report there, sue the investment bankers. In this problem, yes, they should sue the investment bankers.
When did he say that?
Huh?
2006.
2006.
Okay. Because they're the ones that's causing the problem. But now, can we get leadership who's receiving all the money from them to do that? That's another area. Because Wagner said that before DeBoswell took over.
Mm-hmm. Now you have different boards also, like the Ben Franklin Partnership and these other economic boards, where they do plow money into incubator type businesses, startup businesses, expansion of businesses, and that's been done under Democrats and Republicans. You look at the Port of Philadelphia and the kind of money they've been pouring in there, and you know, you spread it around all across the state with all the initiatives. Look at what's been going up in your area up here. I mean, think about the millions of dollars that have been poured into the downtown Allentown, right? And we have the Santander Arena in Reading. You got your arena up here. Those have scattered all across the state. And there's state money involved in every single one of those, by the way. Yes, sir.
I just want to ask you a question. You know, you're talking about people being fair and honest and everything else.
Yes, sir.
If you read the morning column the past couple of days about the legislators, I worked for the government up close to 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
I never got paid for lunch or dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You think about it, the legislators, I know for a fact, because I talked to Mackenzie about it a few times and a few other. They drive from their home to go to work. How many people in here got paid to drive from home to go to work? Legislators get it.
Mm-hmm.
Either they get mileage or they can rent a car.
Or you get one from the pool, and it's a lot
Right.
less.
Well, it's rent, okay?
But they do it in Washington too.
Okay. I know, but that doesn't make it correct.
Okay, let me get to your point, because I hear this all the time. Now, I'm going to throw a couple things at you that I'd like you just to mull on. We have a budget right now of $29.7 billion, and we were talking about it on the way up here. And I just want you to understand, $29.7 billion. You get $300 million to operate the General Assembly, and $300 million to operate the courts. It's about 1%, okay? But nobody ever looks at the $13 billion, some of it wasted in welfare, $11 billion in education, and $2 billion in corrections and growing. It's $2.77 billion now. But what do you look at? Well, let's look at the legislature, and I'm saying, look at the big enchilada. How about how many millions or billions are wasted in welfare? Nobody wants to talk about that. Let's go after the legislature.
Yes, we do. And that's part of your job.
Well, no, wait. It's also part of the people's jobs
Yes,
to
but
report things, because we can't do everything. You say it's us. Who gets to appoint the secretaries of all these cabinets? Who do most of the 50,000 employees work for? The governor, not us.
And you
Who
have nothing
appoints?
to say about it, right?
Very little. Once the secretaries are appointed, they run the show. If you've been in government, you know how it works. You know what I'm saying.
That's why I'm bringing it up.
It's true, what you're
Right.
saying. I'm not saying the legislature isn't at fault and has some sins. I would agree with that. You know, I'm not blind to what you're saying. However, you know, I think it's time that the public really starts taking a look at the other 29 billion and how that's being spent or wasted.
I agree with you totally. There's so much of it in the government, it's atrocious. It's from all different areas and everything else. I'm just saying, I brought that up because it was in the
Right.
paper and I was wondering if
No,
it
no,
was
I
on.
I
And we're talking
understand.
about stuff like this, which is tremendous. I
These are
have put it in the
billions.
market, and this is ridiculous.
I mean, is that not billions?
Yeah.
And compare, I mean, compared to the legislature, and you're saying about 300 million, my God, 300 million compared to 75 billion.
Okay, the last time I'm going to say, you start at home. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is just a quickie. It seems that...
Hold the microphone up.
Oh, okay. This is just a quickie. It seems that every organization that I know of always has periodic audits. Who is the periodic auditor here, and why isn't that a big problem as far as responsibilities?
They do their own audits. That needs to be changed. That's one of the recommendations, and I'm putting it into legislation if you got it. Absolutely. I agree. You're right.
You better do a good job for me, I'll tell you right now.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Two questions. One is, what's the vetting process in order for these companies, in order to be able to invest the money of both of these pensions? Number one. Number two is, and I am on a board as far as the state level for licensing of nursing home administrators. Every board has a transcriber who transcribes everything that is said, everything that is handed out at that board meeting, okay, that I go to. What is going on as far as with these two boards? That's what I think.
That's what I think is going on, my personal opinion. Look, I think we need to have a good system of checks and balances. I think they're out of control. No disrespect meant, I think they need a good education. This gentleman really educated me this past summer about a lot of the terminology and the issues. I dare say that most of the board members, well-intentioned people, probably in most cases, don't understand half of what we've been talking about here tonight. This is deep stuff, and you know, unless you're involved with the market and you study it and you know how to do the investments and everything, you know, this is difficult for people to understand. And to try to get members of a board, and I agree with you, there should be total transparency. You're dealing with billions of dollars, plus how many hundreds of thousands of lives that depend on these pensions. There's got to be change. And this, you know, in all my years that I've spent in Harrisburg, this is the hardest thing to turn around, just like we're talking about property tax. Any of these, it's revolutionary, not evolutionary. It's revolutionary, trying to make these changes. And trust me, I'm going to try, but I'm going to need your help too. You've got to get out to the representatives and senators. One person can't do it all by themselves. You need 102 in the House, 26 in the Senate. Did you have a question, sir? Yes, ma'am.
One of the points I often hear is that the CERS and the PCERS should, as part of pension reform, be forced or transitioned to the 401k. Does it really matter if does it come down to the investments instead of what type of fund it is?
I had invited Tobash, you've heard of him. He's the one that's on the point for legislation. And Richard and I invited Richard and I and Mark, Representative Rossi, and Tobash to my office in Reading, and we sat down and we heard him out. And then both of us said, wait a minute, up to 50,000 defined benefit. Anything over 50,000 401k. You're going to collapse both of them. You know, you can't. It's like taking a baby and cutting it in half. You can't do it. It's just not going to be viable. It's not going to work. But what Richard said about the 401ks, the pure 401ks, that's a difference. I mean, that is a difference. But with what Tobash, and in all good faith, he thinks that that's a good plan. When we examined it and we talked about it, and I know we didn't convince him, he still thinks it's a viable option that if you're making less than 50,000, you're going to stay in defined benefit, which means there's going to be less money going into that. Because anybody over that, you're in 401k. How's that going to work? Somebody's going to lose money. You're not going to have a steady stream of money coming into what's owed to the people right now that are on pensions, and the overall pension system is going to start to be depleted. I just don't think it's going to work. Yes,
I
ma'am.
understood that to mean that if you made $80,000, your first $50,000 would be in the defined benefit, and then your $30,000 would go into
Yes,
the 401k.
it splits it, but
Why would you punish the people making less than 50,000? Why would you want to put them in a program that is not doing what the market's doing?
that's the point, yeah.
Yeah, that was my complaint about that plan. The market, if you go directly into a 401k, you are not going to have all the fees that we talked about.
Right.
You are not going to have all the administration fees that the trustees charge and pay their payroll, their pensions. That goes away. So why would you want the people making less than 50,000 to have a subpar retirement? That's my complaint about that. We'll get back to you just in a second. I want to touch on two other things. The SERS, this just come out. This is their strategic investment plan. This is the one they just wrote. They just put out. You know how much they're following this in their investments? This isn't important to them. They wrote it. They gave it to the board members, and they're saying, "Say, Charlie, we're going to do what we want."
Mm-hmm.
They are violating what they just put out. Okay? The other thing I want to mention real quick is, when this was printed and sent out, it didn't only go to the board members, it went to a lot of other people. House members, Senate members, it went to the executive director of the Pennsylvania School Employees Retirement System, the Pennsylvania Associated of School Retirees, the majority chairman of the Senate, the executive director. This went out to a tremendous amount of people. When did you get it, Tom?
Never got it. Never got it.
You know how I got this?
Quest.
My wife and I went to a town hall meeting. Senator Teplitz. And I asked him questions about the pension. So Senator Teplitz said, at the end of the meeting, he said, "Whoa," he says, "I work for Auditor Jack Wagner." Interesting, right? So I asked them for this report. I got it from Teplitz. He is now a senator. Now, he not only got this report, he got the report that Tom was talking about, the welfare fraud, And he also got the report about the interest swap should be stopped. What's Mr. Teplitz doing about it? Nothing. Now, believe me, I'm going to use this against him when he comes up for election. Okay? The other point I want to make with this is the treasurer back here, when this was done, all know the name Bob Casey? Okay, he got it. Guess who worked for Bob Casey? Tom Wolfe.